Hi everyone, David Aragona here with the Saturday race of the day. It is the Grade 3 Soaring Softly Stakes, race 9 of 10 at Belmont Park, going 7 furlongs for the 3-year-old fillies on the turf course. Got a field of 12 signed on for the turf with one MTO entrant drawn all the way on the outside. But the field of 12 in this turf race is headed by Haughty, who is returning from a layoff after running in third in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf last year for Chad Brown. Chad, always dangerous in these filly and mare turf stakes, and that is the case with Haughty, who looks like the horse to beat in here. If you want to get free PPs for this Soaring Softly, just head on over to the Race of the Day event page on DRF.com, and you can handicap this race for free by yourself. Let's throw up the field for the Soaring Softly, and we'll take a look at the 12 runners signed on for turf. And as you can see, the horse that I pegged as the favorite on the morning line is the number 8 Haughty at 5-2. No surprise, she hails from the Chad Brown stable. Chad Brown is always dangerous in a turf stakes for the fillies and mares. And this filly was pretty good as a 2-year-old, finishing third in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. We'll talk about her a little bit more in just a bit, but she faces some really nice rivals in this race, like the Christophe Clement trained Darrynane, who I've got as the second choice on the morning line, as well as the number 12 Shardy Party, a really intriguing contender, making her second career start for trainer Wesley Ward after an impressive debut victory at Keeneland. Before we get into these main contenders, though, let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this Soaring Softly. And for a 12-horse field, there's not that much speed signed on in this race. So I think the pace projector is correct that the number 4, Wish You Well, could find herself on the front end. This is a horse that has only raced on dirt thus far in her career, but she did show a lot of early speed in her debut when she won at Gulfstream Park, going 44 and change to the half mile, again, in a dirt race. She's never raced on the turf, so we'll see if that speed that she showed on the main track translates to the green, but she does figure to be in front if she runs as quickly as she did first time out. The others that are shown just in behind her, not really front-running types. Champagne Poetry, more of a stalker, and horses like Sailby, Oraika, and Shardy Party, they've all come from off the pace in their best races. Sailby has shown some tactical speed going longer, but most of the runners that are projected to be the shortest prices in this race, like the number 8, Haughty, and the number 9, Darrynane, are shown towards the back of the pack in a race that does not feature too many front runners. Let's move on to some of these major contenders, and we'll begin with that morning line favorite, the number 8 Haughty. And we'll take a look at that third place finish that I mentioned a bit earlier in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. Now, this was just the third start of the career for Haughty. She had crossed the wire first by open lengths in both of her first 2 starts, though she was disqualified out of one of those. So just one official victory to her resume coming into this Breeders' Cup race. But I thought she ran really well here. She was wide around both turns, gains momentum coming to the top of the stretch, but just couldn't quite stick with that turn of foot that was displayed by Pizza Bianca in the late stages. She ran by the entire field in the final quarter mile. But I thought Haughty ran pretty well considering her inexperience coming into that race. We have seen horses come back out of that Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf to do quite well. Pizza Bianca did win a stakes last week at Pimlico. We also saw Consumer Spending actually come back and beat Pizza Bianca in her seasonal debut, and Consumer Spending was back in 6th or 7th in that Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. So the running lines coming out of that race are pretty strong for Haughty. She is turning back to contest the shortest distance that she's ever tried, going this 7 furlongs, but I don't foresee it being a major issue. She's got some tactical speed to go along with her good finishing speed, so Haughty just seems super logical for a barn that seems to always show up with contenders in these graded stakes for the fillies and mares on the turf. Let's move on to another runner that actually has a recency edge on Haughty. That is the number 9, Darrynane, who comes into this race with a prep run at Keeneland. Let's take a look at that race, the Limestone, when she was second back in the middle of April. Now, that is her in the orange cap and the green and white silks. Kind of hard to see all the way towards the back of the pack coming to the top of the stretch, but she puts in a big late run to just miss getting up for the victory here. You could see she finally finds some daylight at about the 8th pole, and she's going to explode through this hole between horses and just miss catching the Wesley Warren trained victor here, Ruthin. But she's finishing very effectively, going this 5.5 furlong distance in the Limestone. She also ran really well to close out her 2-year-old campaign in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint, going 5 furlongs at Del Mar, racing against males. She was far back at the top of the stretch again that day in a 12-horse field, but closed pretty effectively to get up for 4th, just losing by a length to the winner, Twilight Gleaming. So clearly, Darrynane has a big closing kick on her. The big question for her is how is she going to handle stretching out to 7 furlongs? She's never gone beyond 5.5 furlongs in her career. She owns a stakes win that came over the 5 furlong distance, so going even shorter than that. So Derrynane has to prove that she possesses the stamina to go the 7 here. Her dam Port McGee was a turf sprinter as well, one that didn't really seem like she wanted to go a step beyond 6 furlongs. So stamina could be an issue just based on pedigree for Derrynane. But if she does get some pace to close into, she's always dangerous. We'll just see how much develops on the front end. Another horse that I expect to take some support in here is that runner drawn all the way on the outside for trainer Wesley Ward, the number 12 Shardy Party. Let's look at her debut when she won first time out at Keeneland on April 27th. This was going the 5.5 furlong distance, and that is her, the gray horse in the yellow silks, towards the back or the mid pack there, about 6 to 7 lengths off the leader by the time they're getting into the stretch. And she is going to unleash a terrific late run to get up to win here, just really hitting her best stride in the final eighth of the mile to run by the leader. You see she's kind of hopping over to her left lead to get that extra burst of energy right at the end there to get up to win by a half length when they came onto the finish. This filly has a European pedigree. She was purchased for almost 150,000 American dollars at the Tattersall sale as a yearling, and took her a little while to get to the races, but it was worth the wait. And she was a pretty impressive winner that day on debut at 9-5. Now, I'm a little bit concerned about the quality of the field she beat. She got a respectable 94 time form US speed figure, an 83 buyer. I think the latter number is a little bit high looking at some of the runners in that race. And I wonder if she'll take some money based on that, because the horses that finished behind her, a few of them have come back to run lower speed figures or disappoint in subsequent starts. But it might be comparing apples and oranges, because she obviously has so much upside coming out of that race, given the fact that she really just did some serious running in the final quarter mile. She's one to consider in here, but I do think she could take some money with Irad Ortiz climbing aboard once again. So I want to look for some better value among her competitors. Another horse coming off a maiden victory is the number 7 Wonka. Let's take a look at her when she won her second start at Gulfstream Park, going 1.16 back at the end of March. That is her peeling out from in behind the two leaders right there at the top of the stretch. And once she gets out into daylight, she's really going to pick up her feet and produce a nice turn of foot to run by those two runners and go on to win this race by about 3 lengths in the end. This was a nice, easy maiden victory. She got a perfect trip this day. The question for her is the turn back in distance, because both of her prior starts have come going 1.16. Belmont has decent numbers overall with horses coming off maiden victories on the turf, but with turf sprinters coming off maiden wins, he's 0 for 12 with just 4 hitting the board. So just turf sprinting in general, not a great statistic for Belmont. That specific stat coming off maiden victories gives me some cause for pause with Wonka, but she definitely is a filly with upside. I liked the visual impression that she left last time, and some horses have come back out of that Gulfstream maiden race to do well in subsequent starts, including the runner-up Linda's Gift, who did come back to win. So Wonka is one to consider. We'll see if she's another that takes some money in this race, because she was pretty visually impressive that day, as you could see. Kind of an intriguing new face in the Soaring Softly is the number 2, Breeze Easy. She is a European import who's making her first start for Christophe Clement, and she ran pretty well in some stakes over in Europe. Taking a look at her time form USPPs, you see they give the extended time form running line comments. You can click on those, open up any of them to see the time form analysts, what they thought about how she was coming into the race, how she ran, a detailed analysis of her trip, what her potential might be. I find it really instructive to read those when you're assessing these European imports. And the consensus about Breeze Easy was that she really took a big step forward 3 back when she was third in that Rockingham Stakes against males at odds of 40-1, backed up that form 2 back in the Radley Stakes, beaten by a horse that really appreciated the soft going that day at Newbury. A little bit disappointing at Saint Cloud last time, but she did show some real ability over in Europe. A deep closer over there. She would typically get held up towards the back of the pack, try to produce a late kick. So we'll see how that kind of running style works in this 12-horse Soaring Softly. But I pegged her at 10-1 in the morning line. Wasn't really sure what the public was going to do with her. Christophe Clement, not known for having a ton of success immediately with these European imports, but I do think that she's a contender in this race based on her overseas form. The horse that I'm most interested in from a value standpoint is the number 10 Sail By. Let's go all the way back to this filly's career debut when she won at Belmont Park last June as a 2-year-old, because I just want to watch how visually impressive she was this day, going the 6 furlong distance. That is her coming into the stretch in last. And as soon as Junior Alvarado sets her down, you can see her lengthen her stride, and she is going to pass every single horse in this race to get up to win by the time they come to the wire. She just produced this terrific turn of foot going a sprint distance. And subsequent to this, they tried sprinting a true sprint distance one more time, 5 furlongs. But since then, all of her other turf races have come going longer. And I can understand why, because when they initially stretched her out in that Miss Grillo Stakes in early October of last year, she did win, but I thought she had some things go her way that day. It was a somewhat lucky winner of that race because she got the jump on a couple of highly regarded Chad Brown runners that were closing from towards the back of the pack, both of whom who had slight trips. Sailby comes in a little bit light on speed figures, but she got a race under her belt last time when she returned in the Memories of Silver behind some talented runners in this division like Consumer Spending and that Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf winner Pizza Bianca. Set a slow pace, got a little bit leg weary at the end, tiring to finish third, but I really think the turn back to 7 furlongs is going to work for Sailby. It's a question of whether she's good enough to beat those shorter prices on the morning line like Haughty, Derrynane, and Shardy Party. I'm not 100% convinced, but I pegged her at 15 to 1 in the morning line. I could see her going off somewhere near that because trainer Leah Giarmati, typically not a trainer that attracts a lot of tote support. So I think Sailby is going to offer some value in this race. And as we throw up my top picks, you can see I put the number 10 Sailby on top. Just try to highlight a horse that I think is going to offer some value in this race. If she's around that 15 to 1 morning line, I'm willing to find out if she's good enough to beat the favorites at that kind of price. I've got those two shorter prices in there for second and third, the number 8 Haughty, who is just super logical, as well as the number 9 Derrynane. And I've also got the number 2, that European import Breeze Easy, in there for fourth. She's one that I would want to use in the exotics if she is a fair price around that 10 to 1 morning line. But highlighting that value horse, the number 10 Sailby, on top in the grade 3 Soaring Softly on Saturday at Belmont Park. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.